Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. I am so glad you're joining me today because, well, we are going on a deeply fascinating, albeit incredibly sobering, deep dive into one of Japan's absolute worst nuclear disasters. We're going to look at the science, the timeline, and most importantly, the devastating human cost of just trying to save a little bit of time at work. We are going to break down the exact sequence of events that turned a totally routine Tuesday into a literal scientific nightmare.
Okay, let's dive into this. Because, we've all been there, right? You're at work, you're on a tight deadline, and you realize you can shave off 10 whole minutes if you just bypass that one really tedious rule. Usually, nothing happens. But when your workplace is a uranium processing plant, the margin for error is exactly zero. Today, we're exploring a historical event that definitively answers what the true cost of skipping a safety protocol really is, in literally the most tragic way imaginable.
Part 1. The Fatal Shortcut, September 30, 1999.
So let's set the scene here. We're in Tokaimura, Japan, inside a uranium processing facility. Now, to be clear, this isn't a power plant. It's a facility where workers prepare and purify nuclear fuel to be used somewhere else. On this specific day, 3 workers were tasked with preparing a batch of enriched uranium. It was supposed to be a standard, highly regulated procedure, but the desire for efficiency was about to totally override decades of carefully engineered safety standards, and honestly, here is where everything goes wrong. The facility was actually designed with an automated system specifically built to handle and mix these dangerous enriched uranium solutions in exact safe quantities. This system removes the human element entirely to prevent errors. But to save time and speed up the production process, the workers decided to bypass the automated machinery altogether. They opted to manually mix and pour the enriched uranium solution using just stainless steel buckets.
So they manually poured the enriched uranium directly into a precipitation tank. And, this wasn't an inherently dramatic action. It probably felt a lot like mixing paint or pouring a large bucket of water. It was just a mundane physical task. But the horrifying reality of nuclear chemistry is that you don't actually need a fiery explosion to trigger a total catastrophe. By doing this manually, they lost the precise volume control that the automated system provided. They basically added too much of the enriched uranium solution into the tank. Just a simple miscalculation, literally a brief moment of pouring for a second too long, instantly shifted a normal workday into a horrific scientific disaster. That single manual pour completely tipped the scales of physics inside that tank.
Part 2. Reaching criticality. The blue flash.
So, the crucial point is understanding exactly what happened inside that tank. Criticality. In nuclear physics, when you have enough fissile material, like enriched uranium, in one single place, in the exact right configuration, it reaches critical mass. The atoms begin to split, releasing neutrons which then strike other atoms, causing them to split. It's a chain reaction. Usually, this is carefully controlled inside a reactor. But in that open tank in Tokaimura, it was completely out of control. It became essentially a slow-motion, invisible nuclear detonation right in the middle of the room, instantly releasing a massive wave of lethal radiation.
And there was a chilling visual cue that immediately confirmed the disaster. The workers didn't just hear alarms, they saw it. An intense, brilliant blue flash suddenly illuminated the entire room. This phenomenon, which is actually known as Cherenkov radiation, occurs when charged particles travel through a medium, like the fluid in the tank or even the moisture in the air, faster than the speed of light in that same medium. That beautiful, eerie blue light was the physical manifestation of a massive, deadly release of neutron and gamma radiation directly hitting the workers.
Part 3. The Invisible Damage. Hisashi Ouchi.
The physics of the event were instantaneous, but the human tragedy was really just beginning. We have to shift our focus now to the incredible suffering of the people in the room, particularly a 35-year-old worker named Hisashi Ouchi. He was standing directly over the tank, holding a funnel, when that blue flash occurred. And this brilliantly illustrates the uniquely terrifying nature of acute radiation syndrome. When he arrived at the hospital, externally, he was conscious, he could speak. He appeared, all things considered, relatively normal. There were no massive burns or broken bones, but internally, the damage was apocalyptic. The radiation had passed right through him like millions of microscopic bullets, completely shattering the chromosomes in his cells. His DNA, the very blueprint that tells his body how to live and heal, was entirely destroyed.
Because he absorbed a dose of radiation astronomically higher than what the human body can ever survive, his DNA was completely destroyed, meaning his cells could no longer divide. Really think about what that means. Every single day, your body sheds millions of dead skin cells, blood cells, and intestinal lining cells, and it replaces them with new ones.
For Hisashi, that entire process just stopped. Natural healing became biologically impossible. Tissue regeneration was permanently halted. His body was essentially a machine that was still running, but it entirely lost the ability to perform maintenance on itself.
Part 4. 83 Days of Decline, the Fight for Life.
What followed was one of the most grueling and desperate medical battles in modern history. The medical team absolutely knew the prognosis was grim, but they were deeply committed to trying to save him. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer scale of the medical intervention. As his white blood cell count plummeted to near zero, they pumped him full of intensive blood transfusions just to keep his circulatory system functioning. They even attempted revolutionary peripheral stem cell transplantations, using cells from his sister, hoping to somehow kickstart his immune system and blood production. It was an incredibly aggressive, experimental fight for life. They utilized intensive life support, skin grafts, and a barrage of medications, but the radiation damage was simply too profound. His body could not adopt the new cells, it just continued to slowly, painfully disintegrate.
After 83 agonizing days of relentless medical intervention, his body simply could not sustain itself any longer. Hisashi Uwachi passed away in late December 1999. But unfortunately, the tragedy didn't end there. Another worker who was in the room that day, Masato Shinohara, also suffered a massive, lethal dose of radiation. Despite enduring months of his own brutal medical treatments, he too passed away a few months later.
Let's move to and see how this builds into our final segment. Part 5. A terrifying reminder. The true cost of cut corners.
The story of Tokaimura is not just a dark chapter in nuclear physics, it is a profound lesson on the catastrophic human cost of ignoring safety protocols in high-risk environments. You know, they say safety rules are almost always written in blood, and this is exactly why. The automated system at Tokaimura wasn't just a suggestion. It was a vital barrier between life and a horrifying death. When workers bypassed it to save time, they completely removed the only safety net they had. And this connects directly to everyday rules in literally any workplace. Those tedious checklists, the mandatory safety gear, the automated shutoffs, they exist because human beings are prone to error. And in certain environments, even the smallest error can trigger an unimaginable catastrophe. I want to leave you with a final, stark question today. We all face pressures at work, the temptation to rush, to skip a step, to just get it done. But the next time you find yourself reaching for a shortcut around a safety protocol, will you remember the blue flash of Tokaimura? I really hope you pause. I hope you remember this explainer, the science of criticality, and the devastating invisible consequences that followed. Thank you so much for joining me today, and please never underestimate the vital importance of doing things the right, safe way.